Philippe Lazzarini, welcome back to our program.
My pleasure, Christian.
I want to ask you about what you all are calling the apocalyptic situation in Gaza, particularly in the north. I want to start with the latest Human Rights Watch report. They are saying that Israel has basically overseen the forced mass displacement of Palestinians in Gaza. They use the word deliberate, systematic campaign, amounts to a war crime and a crime against humanity. Can you tell me, what is your reaction to that? What are you hearing about what's happening in the north?
Well, if I listen to my colleagues and the report we are getting, I mean, it's harrowing horrors. And what they are describing is a post-apocalyptic environment, basically people just waiting to be killed either by airstrike, by disease, or even by hunger. And it is also true that we have seen over the last months an entire population in the north being under total siege, where hunger has been weaponized and where people have been forced to displace. And I hear from my colleagues that no one is authorized to go back to the north. So by any account, there is indeed a policy of forced displacement.
And I want to ask you further. There have been, like Haaretz has put out an investigation that the IDF is building roads and bases, that the Netzarim corridor that splits the territory is 8 by 8 kilometers. It's a huge swath of land. And Haaretz has investigated, and its conclusion is that the IDF is preparing to stay there at least for all of 2025 and maybe beyond. Do you see those kind of preparations for a military infrastructure? And what would that mean for the humanitarian situation?
Well, if this is the case, that means north of Gaza is not the land anymore for the Palestinian, and there is no way that they will come back anytime soon, which means that the Palestinians now are concentrated in about 10% of the territory in the south of Gaza. They have been over the year concerned about will the Palestinians be expelled from Gaza? Will we observe a second Nakba? For the time being, what we see is just harrowing suffering of the population who has absolutely nowhere to go. But yes, we see a lasting presence of the Israeli army, at least in the north of Gaza.
So on top of that, as you say, the harrowing reality of a people who are not getting enough food, civilians saying that they are seeing others dying of hunger. So let's put it like this. As you know, the Knesset has passed a law aiming to dismantle UNRWA activities. It says it wants to ban them. So where do you see that happening, and what effect will it have if UNRWA, your organization, cannot be the main humanitarian organization to deliver aid to people?
There is no doubt that in the mind of the author of this Knesset bill, they want to get rid of UNRWA. They want to get rid of UNRWA in Gaza, in East Jerusalem, in the rest of the West Bank. And basically, they hope through this that once for all, they will put an end to the refugee statue of the Palestinian. And basically, they are saying also to perpetuate the victimhood of the Palestinian. Now, if in 90 days UNRWA has to leave, that means that the backbone of the humanitarian response in Gaza will collapse at a time needs have never been so high. But beyond the humanitarian response, what is also at stake is the future of the education of 600,000 girls and boys currently living in the rubble and being deeply traumatized, because there is absolutely no other UN agency or international NGOs which is capable to bring back in a learning environment such a number of children. Only a functioning Palestinian institution can do this. Only a state of Palestine can do this.
As you know, UNRWA has been in the crosshairs. The UN has fired, you fired 9 of your staff members after an internal investigation found that they may have been involved in the October 7th attack. And as you know, Israel has accused a number of UNRWA people, and they even said, oh, UNRWA is a front for Hamas. Well, yesterday, the Israeli ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, called for you to resign, and he was standing next to the mother of a hostage. She claims her son was taken hostage by an UNRWA staff member. I want you to listen to Danny Danon.
Earlier today, in the Fourth Committee, I confronted Commissioner Lazzarini on his responsibility for UNRWA's infiltration by Hamas, its fostering of terrorism, and its total failure of accountability. I demanded that Commissioner Lazzarini resigned if he had any decency.
So this is, you know, a very emotional, public demand. And this has been going on for a long time. There seems to be a war of words, or a political war, between Israel and UNRWA. What's your response to that?
Well, Ambassador Danon shared the same statement when he was at the Fourth Committee yesterday. And basically, I say that I really feel the pain of a Jonathan mother. I feel the pain of any parents of the hostages, but I also feel the pain of any Palestinian mother who have lost their children. Now, I also say it is very important that we start to promote what I would say mutual compassion. People have either compassion for the pain of the Israeli people or express compassion for Palestinian people, but no one really is in a position to understand the suffering of the others. And I think this is what we need to promote today.
So do you plan to resign?
I don't plan to resign because I believe that the attacks are not on my person, but the attacks are on the function that I'm occupying as Commissioner General, which means that any future Commissioner General will be attacked the same way.
Now, I want to ask you about the ongoing arguments over the sequencing of aid. As you know, well, you know better than anybody, but certainly the people of Gaza know that not enough aid is getting through. The United States says it's not getting through. It had a deadline with which to link aid to its military, weapons for Israel. That came and went without much improvement. So Israel says that there is a ton of aid inside the Gaza border, and it's just waiting for the international community to distribute it. You are all saying that there isn't aid coming in, and in any event, you are basically being hindered by the IDF from distributing it. What is the actual fact? And let me first play what the head of COGAT, so that's Israel's sort of, coordinating aid body, said to CNN yesterday.
We want to work together with the organizations to see the aid get to where it needs to get to. We've already cleared this aid. It's gone through security, and it's now waiting on the Gaza side, waiting to be distributed. But the international organizations need to increase their capacity for distribution. Since the beginning of the war, they've entered a total of around 30 trucks to expand their capabilities. It's not nearly enough trucks. And we've been encouraging them for months to purchase additional trucks, and we've been willing to facilitate that. But they just aren't taking the steps that need to get there. So the international organizations need to also increase their capacity if we want to see more humanitarian aid getting to where it needs to get to.
I mean, there's a term which is like circular firing squad. Each person saying, no, it's your fault that aid is not getting there. The fact is that aid is not getting to people. What's your response to blaming again the international agencies?
Listen, Christian, I think it's time for international journalists to be on the ground and to report.
We do too. On the record, we do as well. We believe it's time for us to be there, and we want to be able to tell the actual story and the facts of what's going on the ground. But continue.
That's exactly what needs to be done. There is a war of a narrative. The situation has never been as dire. We have never brought in as little than during the month of October. And we have on the other side the COGAT claiming that they have never provided as much assistance. Reality is hunger is spreading, famine is looming again. We had an alert, and this is due to the fact that the assistance is far to be commensurate what the needs are all about.
And meantime, just in case it's not clear, we, the international press, are prevented by Israel from going in there. So what I want to ask you now is, with the Trump re-election, he also has a history of hostility to UNRWA. In his first term, he cut funds to your organization. He's elected, as you know, he's selected pro-Israeli officials, hardliners actually, in key cabinet posts, including the next ambassador, who claims there's no such thing as a Palestinian and no such thing as occupation, etc. What do you think it means for the welfare, the human body and soul welfare of Palestinian people under a Trump 2.0?
Well, for us, the first priority is to make sure that the Knesset law are not implemented, and so UNRWA can continue to provide its services. Would this not be the case, I think it will be catastrophic for the Palestinians in Gaza. Now, we keep hearing that one of the priorities of the new administration is to promote peace. If we promote peace, there might be also a genuine political pathway in which I believe an organization like ours, providing critical services like education and primary health, have a role to play until the day there is a proper alternative to take over the services.
If you had to bet, knowing everything you know, and you're at the UN, you must know what negotiations, if any, are going on. Does that seem likely anytime soon?
Listen, I'm not ready to give up. I still believe that there might be a light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know how much longer this tunnel is all about. It's true that it is very easy to be bleak nowadays, but we have to keep going.
And can you just confirm that you are personally banned from entering Gaza?
I'm personally banned to enter Gaza since January, and I'm personally banned to enter Jerusalem and Ramallah since June of this year.
And what has it meant for the humanitarian situation and delivery? And how have your workers survived? Or tell me what's happened to UNRWA workers in Gaza.
Well, you know, we have an environment of fear. This law are also fueling it. We had an incident last week where the IDF was searching houses in the North and West Bank. They enter into an apartment. They saw that the person is working with UNRWA because they saw a computer. They say, how come are you working for a terrorist organization? Forced the staff to give access to all the data of the computer. The female staff was then blindfolded, brought to an interrogation place for 6 hours. So that exposes, in fact, our staff even much more to harassment.
Philippe Lazzarini, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Christian.